want you to
Save for
fall.
catch.
Like fishing. Okay, item 8 is the Central City Revitalization and Housing Committee report presentation by Mr. Councilman Todd Pearsall.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chairman.
We had held our Central City Revitalization Housing Committee meeting on Wednesday, November 6th at 3:30. On our agenda, we had item number 1, which was an ideal application for Dell Small Engine. Mr. John C. Lowridge, managing partner for the LLC that owns the building and property of Dell Small Engine at 242 East Franklin, submitted an application for an ideal facade grant. And as required by ideal guidelines, the City Central Business District Design Review Committee approved the planned improvements. Contractor estimates for the improvements totaled $8,100. The committee voted unanimously 3-0 to recommend approval of the ideal facade grant in the amount of $2,500 for Dell Small Engine. You have a copy of some renderings on the improvements to this building. The committee felt it was a very crucial corner there at Franklin and Broad right there, and to improve the looks of that, I should say that Mr. Lowridge was very excited to be doing this, and he's the one that approached us, and we felt very comfortable and very good about that. But I'd like to make the motion that the full council approve the committee's approval of that ideal grant.
Second.
Oh, sir.
Discussion?
Just one item, sir.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important, when the gentleman, the applicant, appeared before the committee, he indicated to us under when we had some questions that he in fact believes this will be, number one, a long-term tenant, and secondly, that the tenant in this case is very well skilled in his particular vocation, and they expect that this is going to be continue to be a viable business in the future. Go ahead.
Well, one comment I would make for the vote is that Mr. Porter, help me out here. Mr. John Lockridge, his dad had a very thriving car dealership there for years and years and years. I don't know if that came out or not.
Yes, it was a Buick dealership, correct?
It was what?
I think you said it was the first Buick dealership.
Buick. I think you're right. Yep. So, okay. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor? Okay. All opposed?
What,
How do we handle here?
it's a vote.
In the affirmative.
It's a
Affirmative.
vote in the
Okay.
affirmative in its absence.
That's Keller's thing.
Just one more
Yes.
Counted the affirmative.
comment on item 1. I'd be totally amiss if I didn't mention that Mr. Lockridge was, it's written here, was very appreciative to the committee and to staff for their assistance, but he was very appreciative to the staff. He could not compliment our city staff, Jason Thompson and others. He could not compliment them enough for their help in coming up with the design and the fix and so forth like that. So I'd be amiss if I did not mention that to full council, that how appreciative he was of our staff and how well they worked with him. Moving on to item number 2. I'm sure there's going to be questions on this. I'm glad Assistant Manager Bombardier is here with us. The city was contacted by a downtown business owner regarding their concern for available parking for downtown businesses, and with the ongoing continuation of downtown development and in light of more movement towards rehabilitation of the Lawyers Building, concern was expressed on how this will impact existing businesses. Rather than read you this whole thing, staff came up with a pilot project. It would be 120 days where we would work with this concerned business on some solutions to parking. Not necessarily long-term. Like I said, this is going to be a pilot program. It will be implemented for 120 days. It will involve the city's parking deck behind the conference center, which is underutilized at this time. And then after that 120 days, staff would come back and make recommendations on, is the program successful, should it continue, should it not continue, that sort of thing. But right now, the committee voted unanimously 3-0 to recommend approval of the pilot project for a 120-day period, and I'd like to bring that forth as a motion to the council.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second here, sir.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I don't think we should just give that one business free to follow. But I'm for letting them do that. But let's have them with all of it. What about next? And a number of other businesses downtown. I don't think it's fair. It's a public place. And I think any business should be entitled to the same, experience that we're giving this one thing.
That was actually brought up, and Mr. Bronbeer will explain.
Yeah, Zoe's is down there.
Councilman, that as Councilman Pearsall said, that was discussed and brought up by the council members on the committee. And what we've talked about as this pilot program evolves, first we need to work through the logistics and be sure the printed exit vouchers, the pre-printed ones, everything's working, the system stays reliable. But yes, I think we can expand that during that period, but we didn't want to do it day one, trying to work out some of the bugs first and be sure that the pilot, we implement it successfully. But I think the committee and staff share that same thinking moving forward through the pilot.
Well, comment. Why do you have to have vouchers? Why don't you just open it up? Let anybody park there. Right.
I think from
Just let everybody that wants to use it. Any citizen, anybody.
Councilman, from a staff perspective, well, two things. One, the automated system, we'd love to get more use of it, and again, check its reliability, people using it daily to verify that system. As far as opening up for free parking, the thinking at the time of having an automated system and paid for parking downtown, that we would evolve into that. The revenues that we generate from that, while not a lot of money, would still be used to help offset the debt service for the parking deck and conference center. So that was the thinking early on. The Wilderman Group manages the parking deck and conference center. If we were just to open that up free, I'm sure we would have to negotiate with them to do that. But I think from staff perspective, we think this pilot, using the system, seeing if it's reliable and works daily, and then the opportunity to generate some more revenues for the city to help offset that debt, we think that's important.
I don't think people are gonna pay to park down there. I really don't. I can't support just letting one group do it. I'm for them doing it, but I think we need to open it up. Any number, Nick's, for instance. How about the pub downtown? And Nick's and any other businesses, I think they ought to have an opportunity to be part of this. I think it's wrong just to set it on one person. Didn't you say that person didn't even show up for the committee meeting? They sent you a letter and an email
At
already?
the committee meeting, yes, they
Yeah,
did not.
so you see a whole lot of interest there, but I just think it's just not fair to other businesses that we don't allow them to have the same experience.
Again, Councilman, I don't think we're saying that. I think we're saying, let us get this pilot up and running and be sure we can do that, and I think we can expand that to other businesses.
I think the pilot could include more than one business. I do.
Mr. Kemp.
To a degree, I understand what you're saying, Councilman McAteer, but we also, I think we need to be careful that we take a measured approach in this pilot program. The last thing I think we want to do is have too much of the parking taken up in the conference center parking garage, and then as the conference center, which we all hope it moves forward in the amount of vehicles and the amount of folks that start to attend the conference center events, don't have a place to park. And I think that the pilot program, if I understand you correctly, Flip, is that it's going to allow us to measure how many are using it, the frequency, and how much we can allow comfortably to be there without negatively impacting the conference center.
That is another piece of it, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gallagher.
Flip, the parking area behind the Standard Building, behind the pub, behind Nick's and all, that parking area back there, is that pretty crowded? Is that pretty full?
At times, yes. Now, some of that is public parking that the city administers. Some is private parking. I know Mr. Pinniger has several of the parking spaces back there are on his private property. and then some actually go with the standard building itself. But just depends on the time of day and what's going on, whether or not that whole lot is full or not.
Yeah. I just see how close it is to the parking deck itself, and if there was a gate or something that could allow people to park within the parking deck, because it's underutilized right now, the parking deck itself.
It is.
And I think if they had access to go from the standard parking lot back there to the conference center and to park there, I think that would be beneficial. Just a thought.
Questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. So you,
I made the motion.
I second.
and he seconded, right? Okay, that was discussion. All in favor of the recommendation of the committee, raise your hand, please. All opposed? Okay.
Okay.
Go right ahead, sir.
Moving on to item 3, was a presentation by the Building and Development Task Force. A group of citizens consisting of local commercial and residential builders, real estate agents, and architects identifying themselves as the Gastonia Building and Development Task Force made a presentation to our committee. The task force presented 3 items of concern for the committee's consideration. And I am going to take a moment to go through all these 3. The first was building and zoning codes have confused the term use and occupancy. And the requested action from them was to clarify with all the departments the ordinance and the law regarding building and zoning code requirements. And you'll see out beside the directives from the committee. And I'm just going to go down and then I'll go back and read the directives. But number 2 is adjacent city and counties are major competitors to Gastonia and Gaston County. Gastonia needs to acknowledge the changes in growth projections for facilities use and encourage recovery in the residential market, including partially completed subdivisions and foreclosed subdivisions. The requested action was in order that approved planned subdivisions are completed, city policy should make every effort to utilize vested rights in order to facilitate the completion of older projects. Additionally, the city should implement the following in order to remain competitive with other entities. A, repeal the recreational impact park fees, and B, for residential permitting, adopt flat water and sewer tap and fees of $1,500 for 3/4 water with sewer, 3/4 inch water with sewer. And C, for residential permitting, adopt a flat permit fee regardless of house size of $800. 3, when obtaining a building permit and certificate of occupancy for existing and new building development, make the process accurate and transparent. The requested action there is staff shall be required to put all requirements, review comments, and inspection comments in writing with supporting references to the ordinance or building code. And B, staff comments and documents shall be completed in writing by 5:00 p.m. the next business day, including code pages with references clearly marked. Getting back to the directives for the first one, you'll see staff will clarify the rules for building and zoning use inspections, including the recent state law limiting inspections for existing buildings. For the second item, the committee directive was a representative from the city will attend a Home Builders Association meeting to explain vested rights and other grandfathered rules and limitations. For item number 3, for comparison purposes, staff will canvass jurisdictions within the region regarding their permit and fee structures. And number 4, staff will provide a report covering all of the issues at the next committee meeting on Wednesday, December 4th, 2013 at 3:30 p.m. As you'll see, we don't have any recommendations for the council that they need to vote on at this time for item number 3, but I would like to point out that the Gastonia Building and Development Task Force is something that I asked for and have been working with Councilwoman Craig on. Being in the real estate industry and working with a lot of these developers and builders, I'm often the contact point for complaints, shall we call it, be they legit or imagined. There's still a concern. I field a lot of these calls. Councilwoman Craig, having had family in the development business and being in sign business, she deals with a lot of the same ordinances and is familiar with those. So we appointed a task force and asked them to look at the issues issues of concern within the development and building community, and to bring those forward and let us evaluate them. Is it a legitimate concern? Is it something that could be changed? Was it state law and we can't change it? Different things, but we wanted to evaluate each. There was a long list of items. Certainly something we were not going to tackle all at one time, so this task force will continue meeting. These were the first three things they brought forth, and as you see, as I mentioned in recommendation number 4, staff is looking at these, and they will bring their own recommendations back to the committee. Then we'll probably have another meeting where we compare what the task force wants, what the staff committee wants, and see if we can't find a happy medium. So at the end of the day, we are moving forward and developing and building Gastonia in a way that we would like to see done. So does not require a vote at this time, and that concludes my report, Mayor.
All right.
Question.
Question? Yes, sir.
Who appointed this Gastonia Building Development Task Force? I don't remember ever voting on that.
Yours truly.
You did. So they really don't represent the city, they represent you.
No, they represent themselves.
They represent themselves,
Correct.
but this is not an official task force of
No,
the city
sir.
of Gastonia.
Not for the
There
city.
might be other people that might be interested in serving on this, maybe in the community.
It's very possible, and I'll be glad to put them in touch.
Yeah,
with
if
the
there's
community.
somebody else listening that would be interested in participating in this group, you'd be willing to,
Certainly, I'll put them
involve
in
them?
touch with that committee. Sir.
okay.
That task force, I should say. It's not a committee.
Well, I appreciate the work you're trying to do, but I just wondered, I didn't think that was an official task force. Thank
No,
you.
sir. It's extracurricular.
Okay. Thank you for the report. Long report and good report. Item 9, the next one is City Attorney's report. Mr.